This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Dr. Amy Dufrane, CEO of HRCI, about the biggest challenges facing HR leaders right now, the biggest concerns for HR in the next 90 days, how to make HR more business relevant, and her journey in transforming HRCI. Amy Dufrane, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Yeah, Amy, it's been a pleasure getting to know you more over the last several years as we've worked together at HRCI, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to chat with you about your perspective on really the whole field of HR, what's going well and it is exciting for HR right now, but also what the future holds. So I think that'll be a great discussion. But also, I'm really excited to share with the listeners a little bit more about HRCI and give them a chance to understand the transformation that's been happening and your role in helping move that forward. So that's all part of what we're going to be discussing today. For the listeners, Amy Dufrane is the CEO of the HR Certification Institute. Before joining HRCI, Amy spent more than 25 years as an innovator of human capital strategies for progressive organizations. She also serves on the Wall Street Journal CEO Council, is a member of the CEO Roundtable, and a member of the advisory board of the Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind and the Next Concept Human Resource Association. She holds her doctorate from the George Washington University, an MBA and MA from Marymount University, and a BS from Hood College. And Amy, you have been at HRCI for a long time, first as director or executive director, and then transitioning into the CEO role. Anything you would like to add for the listeners before we jump on into the conversation?
Well, you can see, John, that I am totally a learning and HR junkie from my background of spending a lot of time in the classroom. I also hold a certification from HRCI, and I'm very passionate about certification and continuing to evolve and upskill yourself. So I think being at HRCI has been a wonderful opportunity for me to continue to evolve not only my passion, but instill that passion into other folks who are interested in elevating themselves from an HR perspective. So I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. So as we start off today, I think we'll start with kind of the big picture question. Right now in the world, it's an interesting time. We're facing a global pandemic. Here in the US, we have social and political strife, racial tensions. We're recording this on Juneteenth, which is a really important day to recognize and remember within the context of everything that's happening in the US right now. The Black Lives Matters movement and the protests that are happening, all of these things are happening all around us while people are working from home or they've lost their jobs. It's such an interesting time. So with all of that in mind, the context, what do you see the biggest challenge being for organizational leaders and HR leaders right now?
So I think the biggest challenge that I am hearing over and over and over again is anxiety and uncertainty. Those are really the challenges that I'm hearing about. I just put my hands on a couple of briefings from the Harvard Business Review where they really are focused on anxiety and leadership in times of crisis and great change. So there are two. One is, more of a smaller article. One is sort of a compilation of a lot of different articles that HBR has written over time in times of crisis, and what leaders have done to embrace the anxiety and unrest in crisis situations. Because I think, we hear this is that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And I think this is really causing organizations to be a lot more innovative than they ever have before. There's we know that based on our long history as and assessing organizations, we know that there have been some really great companies that started when we were in a crisis. Companies like Disney, like IBM, like HP, like Trader Joe's, like Microsoft. So these big name companies that started when there was this time of anxiety and crisis. And so I think these are all the things that are facing leaders right now. And it's sort of taking one step at a time, not getting too far ahead of yourself, but really knowing that there is, kind of this future that's going on out there, and that you're working towards it. But I think, being in the midst of a pandemic and the civil unrest that's happening right now is really giving us an opportunity to rethink priorities personally and priorities organizationally. And so I think that this is a really introspective time for us to really embrace that anxiety and embrace this time of opportunity to think about things in a deeper way, to evolve and innovate.
Yeah, I love that. In our pre-discussion before we started recording, we were talking a little bit, just about how, really to your point, how this is a chance for us to slow down a little bit, to have more time to ourselves or with our families, where we can still be productive and do the work that needs to be done. But, commutes are gone for a lot of people. And we just have the chance to really reflect. And that's such an important thing always. But it's probably extra important during a time of crisis. And the fact that we have that opportunity now, where we're not, there's still the grind. People are still trying to be productive, and organizations are struggling and challenged to innovate in this space. But in this dynamic, we do have a little bit of opportunity to really sit back and reflect and really carefully consider, like you said, our priorities. And that's just so key. And sometimes that can get lost in the hustle and bustle of just going from place to place, all the travel, all
Right.
the meetings. And now we have that opportunity. So I love that. And I hope we don't waste that because it's so key. And I hope that people will also recognize the role that reflection plays, so that even when we come out of the crisis, that leaders can continue to take the time to quiet their minds, to pause, to step back, where they can consider things more strategically and carefully as they work to move forward in positive directions. I think you also mentioned, in terms of the innovation that is being forced upon organizations right now. I mean, you really have no choice. You either have to be creative and innovate, or you're going to go out of business right now. And
That's right.
That's that again is such a good opportunity. And it seems to me, in my kind of more limited space, you're around with the movers and shakers in organizational leadership and HR on a day-to-day basis, as part of your role as CEO of a major, HR certification body and learning organization. I'm much more limited, of course, in those interactions. But man, I've seen just in the last 3 months, it seems to me the uptick of people just reconsidering what they considered to always just be normal and what they took for granted as what should be done. And now they're just being forced to reconsider, what technologies are we using? How are we interacting with each other? Was all of that travel really necessary? All those types of things.
Right.
It's so vital, and it truly is a good opportunity for us right now.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I think it is that given companies who said our employee base can never work from home, period. And then they realized, okay, do we want to be productive? Do we want to have business continuity or not? So there was no choice put in front of us. So I think that, CEOs who I talked to who as late as November and December who said the most innovative thing that we're doing is having a meeting-free Friday. And I go, that was so like 10 years ago. I can't even wrap my brain around that. And he said, we never, and they were in Chicago. This is a huge multinational corporation. And he said, we would never, people can't work from home. It's just impossible. So I think, okay, now what? So I think we're really seeing that happen. And, when I think about what's occurring right now within organizations, this has really hit HR particularly hard. And for the folks that I'm talking to people who are working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. They work in the healthcare industry, and just trying to keep their employees safe, their clients safe, and keep the doors open because they have to, right? I talked to somebody who works, he's a CHRO in a food distribution business. Got to get people food. Got to get restaurants that were opening or doing sort of a modified delivery schedule or serving schedule, got to get them food. So he was working 7 days a week. And I talked to a CHRO that right before COVID-19 really hit hard in the United States, she works for a government contracting organization, and they had a situation happen at one of their work sites in the Middle East. And a lot of people, when that happened, said, I just want to get home. This was way more than I signed up for. And I need to be with my family right now. And then COVID-19 happened, and she was trying to get people home. There were no flights. People were getting stuck in countries for which they didn't speak the language. And so I've had conversations with HR leaders that are doing that. And then I've had conversations with HR leaders that are delivering news about people who are, their jobs have been eliminated or they're furloughed or, their salaries have been reduced, their benefits are changing, and they're making these decisions really quickly. Mm-hmm. And HR typically has had this very, more of a rule book, I'll call it, some really fundamental things, privacy and safety and security that were sort of, it was kind of a given. And this has really put HR at that epicenter of, oh my gosh, that rule book that we had, forget it. Employee privacy, forget it. I mean, we have to test people. We've got to make sure that they're well, that they can come into work, that they're not going to infect everybody if we're in a meatpacking plant. I mean, it's really shifted this. And then, we had the civil unrest that happened, and, the emergence of a more focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, which, HR this has been, again, a foundational effort that HR is focused on ensuring that people they belong, they fit in where they are, that they're welcome. And all of this has emerged and has created yet another big topic for HR to focus on. And important, these are all very important: employee safety, family safety, diversity, belonging, all of those things, on top of sort of this idea of business continuity when all of this is happening. And HR is right at the epicenter, more so than any other function within the business. This has fallen on HR's shoulders, and HR has led the way, and they're leading the way. But it's hard for folks to stay positive when they're so when it's just this grind of a lot of big things that are happening within their companies.
Yeah, and I think when you start to layer these different elements, so we have a pandemic, and then we have the George Floyd moment and Black Lives Matter protests, and you have all of the civil unrest and the struggles around race. So leaders are trying to figure out, well, how do we balance the urgent, like really urgent needs of the organization, just to keep the doors open, keep paychecks coming, like you said, business continuity, and just making sure that things continue to happen. How do we balance that with the very real need to address the anxiety, the stress, the fears of uncertainty for employees anyways, just given the pandemic? But then, how do you also take the time to have those critical and very sensitive conversations around diversity and inclusion, race relations, pausing to listen to those employees that are people of color in your organization that are experiencing something, that's even a heightened level of anxiety than maybe you or I might be feeling, right?
That's right.
That is so, there's so many things to be balancing right now. That's more than normal. And
that's right.
And you said it tends to fall on HR. And hopefully we have capable leaders in those positions to be able to carry the torch and move things forward in productive ways.
That's right. And I think it's, we're coupled, you couple all of that with the need to have this communication and connectivity within your organization, which is an element of all of those things that you mentioned and we've sort of talked about. But how do you have these conversations on Zoom? How do you have people feel connected to one another when you're not sitting in front of each other having these conversations about all the topics that we've talked about? It's it's sort of the amplification of all of this. I think it's challenging all of us. It's challenging all of us to be better and to think differently about how we're doing things. So it's
it's very interesting. And it, as I monitor the news and talk to people like you, leaders in the industry and various thought leaders, what comes to the surface over and over and over again is that really some people are really grasping this moment. And it's a lot. It's hard. It's a lot of work, but they're doing the best they can, and they're grasping this moment, and they're doing great things for their organization. Of course, though, not everyone is doing that, and there's just as many examples of organizations that are kind of falling flat on their face and having missteps. Nobody expects leaders to be perfect, and everyone knows, especially in a heightened time like this of anxiety and challenge, that there are going to be missteps. But this is demonstrating, I think, it's forcing leaders to show their true colors, their priorities, and some seem to be up to the challenge and others don't. And I think that's a good kind of sifting process that we might be going through right now. And I think those leaders that are really stepping to the plate and doing the best they can and trying to be transparent and communicate with their employees, recognizing the challenges that their employees are having and trying to be supportive of them, those leaders will come out of this even stronger. Those organizations will come out of this even stronger with stronger employee commitment to the organization, heightened levels of motivation, productivity. So what do you see as the greatest concern over the next next 3 months? We're kind of right in the middle of it. I don't know about you, but here in Utah, people are kind of treating it like things are just completely back to normal. Things have opened back up, even while we continue to have a spike. So the number of cases and the number of deaths continue to go up like this, but people are like, we're done. So they're just going out. And I don't know if it's like that back on the East Coast and in the DC area, but certainly we're not out of the woods yet, and we're still in the middle of this. So what do the next 90 days look like?
Right. Well, I think, in as they call it, the DMV, the District, Maryland, and Virginia, we are still extremely cautious. Our kind of peak happened about a month ago. So the number of cases that we have are coming down, and people, when I go out to a grocery store, people are wearing masks, they're wearing gloves. There's still a lot of focus here on let's keep that down. But I know that's not the way that it is everywhere. I think people are kind of over it. And they're wanting to get out and they're wanting to do things, and they're sort of thinking it's done. And so I think, kind of when I think about what's happening over the next 90 days, you think about this, bring people back to work, but creating a safe and healthy place where people are comfortable coming back. In a lot of, at least in areas where there's people take public transportation a lot to get to work, there's a lot of fear around that. So employers are having to, sort of be more, individualistic in how do you help people to be comfortable coming to work so that they're protected, their families are protected, and they feel safe and they're not worried. So I think that's an area where HR is very focused on, continuing to have these conversations. Transparency around what's going on within the organization, I think, is really important. We've talked a little bit about this, but kind of the time management, people having, when you're working from home, that line becomes even more blurred. I think I have several team members at HRCI that work remotely. We have folks that are all over the world, actually, and so they're working in their own home office. So it's now it's understanding the challenges that they have when we're all back in the office together, and how do we create that connectivity for those folks in a longer term. So these are, kind of 90 days and beyond. I think that, having employees, giving them access to information is really important for us. I think it's that the fear of the unknown. At HRCI, we did a survey of some of our certification holders and people who are in our learning space, and we had a very good response to this. And so we talked about what are the greatest, what are they over the next 90 days. So there's still a concern of HR practitioners that, it's bringing those people who are on furloughed back, but when can we do that? When will we be financially back to where we were, or to a place where we can start bringing people back? And or if we can't, what are the next things that we're going to have to do? More layoffs or start that layoff process. I think that's really something that is important. We, in some of the things that we talked later, they asked for and wanted coaching for unconscious bias, around this diversity, inclusion. How do we make sure that in our work, our places, we're not creating this unconscious bias? And so, bringing that and emerging that forward is important. And this new normal that we're in, what is it? What is the new normal? Because I think everybody's sort of talked about it, but what is it? And is it going to be that it is just that this new normal is continuous change and disruption, and so there is not a new normal? And when I think about some of the things that when I've talked to business leaders over the past 90 days about what they're wanting from HR, it's that they're asking for HR to take the reins and lead, not be more, sort of, I'm here to serve, but I'm here to lead. Walking arm in arm with your business partners, who are part of your organization, to help them in making these hard decisions for their business. So you bring your business hat that's focused on people part, that human capital part, but that you're walking arm in arm with them to make these really challenging decisions. And I think before COVID-19 happened, we were talking about the war for talent and how do we engage people. And at that point, we know that a lot of people were not engaged with the work that they were doing. They weren't really excited about it. So that likely hasn't changed, right? They're still not excited about the job that they had. But how do we as HR engage those people who are unengaged, and having them to realize that what you are interested in doing, maybe what's in front of you right now, and giving you that sort of the inspiration to work towards your aspirational role. And so how do we do that in helping our employees who are unengaged right now, and we want to get them kind of back in the fold, so to speak. So there's sort of multi-answers to the question of the next 90 days, but also what are business leaders expecting of their business partners that happen to be in the human capital space? What are they expecting of us?
Yeah, and one of the things you said that really resonated with me was this opportunity for HR to step to the plate to really be leaders amidst the crisis. And within the HR profession for really a couple decades, there's been this push towards how do we get a seat at the table? How can we be seen as more relevant to the core strategic planning of the business and all of these different elements? This is an opportunity. I mean, HR is front and center right now, and this is an opportunity for HR leaders to really step forward and to demonstrate how crucial, how vital they are to the success of the organization. And I hope we don't miss that, because really, we don't wish pandemics or civil unrest or any of that kind of strife on anyone or any organization. But when we're in the midst of the crisis, it can be an opportunity. And I would love to see the HR profession emerge from all of this with a heightened stature and with an awareness of leaders across different divisions and functions, recognizing this is crucial, this is vital. We need to have them at the table, being an important part of the decision-making and the discussion, and not simply a service center that helps us take care of our employees. Other thoughts on
the transactional? That transactional nature is, HR has that seat. They have the ability to lead organizations, and this is the time. This is HR's time. And I think this is an amazing time to be in HR. I think it's a hard time to be in HR, harder than any job that's out there. And being a healthcare worker, of course, I'm if you're working on the COVID-19 situation, I can't even imagine that. But I think HR is right up there. Is right up there with the tough jobs that there are to have. HR was hard before all of this happened. It's now even more challenging ever. And the folks that are part of the HRCI community, we have had more than 500,000 people that have been certified by us, and the number in 45 years that we've been doing this. Our community has stepped into leading this challenge, and folks that hold our certifications, the PHR, SPHR, GPHR certifications, are really are leading the way for the future of HR. And I'm excited to be part of the community and ongoing part of this community. That's in my blood, because I think that HR is the business function that can make the most important difference in a business.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you started talking a little bit about what you're doing at HRCI and the certificates and the recent survey you did. Of course, in our interactions over the last several years, I'm privy to a lot of the behind the scenes work that's happened at HRCI. But I would love to talk with you about your perspective on the transformation that the organization has gone through over the last 5+ years, because HRCI is a very different organization today than it was 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, and you're doing some really cool, innovative things for the profession, for the certificates, and really kind of expanding what is meant by an HRCI customer from what was considered traditionally. Can you share a little bit about these innovations and transformations that are happening?
I'd love to. And for those of you that don't know, John was on our board for many years and was a fabulous board member who has been part of the transformation of HRCI into the organization that we are right now. And I think we were 5 years ago, a 45-year-old startup or a 40-year-old startup at that point, right? And we had great product recognition. People know the PHR and SPHR. They didn't know that HRCI was the engine behind that. And the past 5 years, we've really, we've rebranded. We have added to our certification base a certification for individuals that are looking to break into HR, college and university space, for those who are recent graduates, who right now is the best time for those recent graduates to get their certification, because it is a marker of differentiation on your resume. And you've got the knowledge that you learned in your undergraduate and graduate programs. So this is a great time to add that marker of excellence on your resume. And so we've added certifications. We have three certifications for those practicing HR outside of the United States. And we have seen significant growth because individuals outside the US are very interested in upping their game from an HR perspective. And in some countries, HR is evolving. And so having a certification is part of your expansion of your knowledge to demonstrate that you know what's happening. We've also added a way for HR practitioners who may not be ready to take the plunge and get certified to upskill themselves. We've got several learning programs out there in both that are upskills and learning programs, which are all on our website at hrci.org. We've added these markers, these additional learnings, because as part of getting certified, it's not just preparing and taking the exam, but every 3 years you've got to get recertified. So you've got to keep your knowledge fresh. And we know in HR that our as demonstrated even by the past 2 weeks, HR has yet changed again with sort of new legislation that will be coming down very shortly that we are, responsible for ensuring our organizations are abiding to. So we've done, those sorts of things. We too have a podcast called Inevitable, the Future of Work. We're doing some news flashes once a week that you can find on our website and Facebook if you follow us, or Twitter. So we're pushing things out there. We're, teaming up with organizations because a lot of conferences across the United States at least have been canceled or postponed or turned into virtual. So we're teaming up with organizations that are doing virtual conferences. HR Summer School was one that we just participated in with Ben Eubanks. It's great. If you go to hrsummerschool.org, there is a ton of free content out there that's high quality. We were a part of that, and great information. We're also part of Inspire, which will be happening just in a couple of days, which will be June 22nd through the 26th. If you're a certified HR person, it's free. And so another great way to get some great learning content that's out there. We worked with Dave Ulrich, Libby Sartain, and Bill Schiemann. We published The Rise of HR. We're on our third iteration of the HR Body of Knowledge, which is a huge, if you want to know everything about HR, it's a big giant book that was published by Wiley. So we've really evolved and are helping the HR profession be even better than it is right now. So those are just a few of the things we've done.
Yeah, really cool. And HRCI has transformed from a certification organization to a learning organization that does certifications, right?
That's right.
So certifications are still at the core of what HRCI is all about. And like you said, there's a tremendous brand there. It's the most trusted certification in the HR space, great accreditation globally, and all of these different elements that make it so valuable for professionals. But there's so much more in that ecosystem that goes around supporting those professionals, the individuals, their organizations, and the profession. And that's what HRCI has grown into in recent years, to be a learning organization that supports all aspects of professionalization, certification for the HR profession, for HR leaders. And that's exciting. That's exciting work.
It is. I mean, there is never a dull moment at HRCI. And I think that as we are continuing to evolve and really listen to the community and watch what's out there, we're really adapting and changing, and we're innovating just like the other companies that are, looking to stay relevant. We are too. So it's an exciting time to lead such a vibrant organization that's really doing some really fundamental work and work that makes a difference for HR leaders.
Yeah, and I do also just want to point to really the job that you've done in recent years, because this transformation any sort of transformation isn't easy. Any change isn't easy, and HRCI has faced a huge amount of change, kind of an existential crisis that occurred several years back, and you've been at the head of that, of course, leading through kind of the darkness, trying to find the path out, and you've done some really truly amazing things, and not only are you an expert in the HR space, but as an organizational leader, I think you've demonstrated and shown your capabilities to build on the passion that you have to help this organization transform, and really to help the transformation of the profession. So I really appreciate all the work that you've been doing.
Oh, well, thank you. I did not do this alone. This is not a one-person show by any stretch of the imagination. HRCI is a huge community. We have, our board We have our subject matter experts that are part of building our learning programs. We've got hundreds of them. I feel like, and they're amazing. And my team is amazing. They exude the same amount of passion that I do. And so I'm really fortunate to work with them and be a part of HRCI.
Wonderful. Well, Amy, it has been wonderful talking with you. Great discussion. I'm excited, for the listeners to learn more about HRCI, but also just everything that we've discussed in terms of the relevance of HR, the heightened importance of HR, and really what HR leaders can focus their attention on in the coming days, weeks, and months as we try to get through this crisis. Before we close, how can the listeners get connected with you, learn more about HRCI, and some of the other cool things that you're doing?
Right. So love for you to visit our website at hrci.org. We have lots of great resources. We have a weekly newsletter that comes out. So if you go to our website, you can scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and there's a place for you to fill out your name and your email address, and you'll get some great communications from us on a weekly basis. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. We're on all the social media platforms. You can reach me. My LinkedIn is available out there. You can email me at amy.dufrane@hrci.org. And I'm always interested to talk to great HR leaders who are, and business leaders who are making a difference. John, I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you for being a valiant supporter of HRCI as a board member and as part of the CEO Advisory Council. So I really I appreciate all that you're doing for HRCI as well.
It's my pleasure, and it's truly been a great organization to be connected with. Thanks again, Amy. It's been wonderful talking with you. I hope you and your family are healthy and safe, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe, and that you have a great week. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.